Hello and welcome to World Talks on TVP World. My name is Anna Kalczyńska. Ukraine and Poland will cooperate in drone production. The two countries have just signed an agreement to set up a joint working group to share experience and expertise in drone warfare. The development comes a week after an unprecedented violation of Polish airspace by Russian drones. Joining me to elaborate on the details of this cooperation is Reuben F. Johnson, Director of the Asia Research Center, Kazimierz Pulaski Foundation. Mr. Johnson, you are a 36-year veteran of analyzing and reporting on foreign weapon system, defense technology, and international politics of arms experts, as well as a survivor of the 2022 Russian invasion of Ukraine. And you worked several years in the U.S. defense industry as a foreign technology analyst. So let's come to yesterday's development. Polish Defense Minister Władysław Kosiniak-Kamysz arrived in Kiev yesterday to join his counterpart Denis Shmyhal and other senior officials to discuss potential cooperation in drone production and combating drones during wartime. So as the famous saying goes, better late than ever, right? How badly is Poland lagging behind in drone production?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me.
It's our pleasure.
Secondly, yeah, Poland's behind, but Poland shouldn't be singled out. Everyone's behind the Ukrainians when it comes to this technology, including the Americans. And I have I'm in kind of a unique position that I talk with people in Ukraine who are in the defense sector all the time, including some people that go back and forth to the front lines all the time. And they all tell me the same thing. They say that there was just a defense expo of sorts, mostly like a technology expo for defense in Lviv, very close to the Polish border. And one of my colleagues came back from there. He's in Kiev, and he says 90-something% of the companies at this event from Ukraine were doing something that had to do with drones. And then maybe 2% of the Western companies had something to do with drones. And I want to emphasize a couple of things. First of all, this agreement is probably going to be very good for both sides, because Poland can benefit from Ukraine's experience. And that's the way the war has gone. In the beginning, we were training the Ukrainians, and now we're learning from them. The process is reversed. Secondly, they are more and more starting to put production facilities on the territory of Poland because it's a NATO country, and the Russians won't attack it because they're afraid of a war with NATO. But the other thing I would like to add, if I can elaborate just a minute, go back a year and a half or so, what were you hearing? We don't have enough artillery shells. We're burning through artillery shells, like it's, toilet paper. Like there's nothing, it just goes. You don't hear that anymore. Why? Because people aren't using artillery rounds to the degree that they once were. I mean, an artillery round can cost between 2,300 to 3,200 euros per round. Some of these drones cost as little as $500 around, and an artillery shell doesn't have any brains, doesn't have any eyes. You can't guide it. Once you fire it, that's it. But if you've got a drone, you can see around the back of a building, you can see over a hill, you can see what's behind it. The drones have taken the place of so many things, artillery just being one of them.
Exactly. Well, yesterday we had a guest, Sergei Pritula, a Ukrainian activist, called also the king of the drones.
Yeah.
He was the guest of TVP World on the record yesterday, and he claims Ukraine wants to substitute humans on the battlefield. He says that for Ukraine, the manpower is priceless. I mean, the human lives are priceless, whereas for the Russians, they have basically no value of. So do you think that is the direction that we are facing?
I'm absolutely sure that's the direction that things are going. And I sometimes sit down and I think about, if you're familiar with the Star Wars film, it's the episode 1 where the drone army fights on the planet Naboo. There's these legions of robots. I mean, that's where this is going. This is where it's going to end up. And yes, the Russians have absolutely no regard for human life, and they have sacrificed not only over 1 million of their own people, but thousands and thousands of North Koreans and other people who've been sent in. So, but this is the future, and the Russians will never catch up in that sense. They'll never be able to equal the technology and the capability of the collective West in Ukraine.
Mm-hmm. So we are in the process of automatization of the battlefield, basically. Well, I'm asking because the Polish government planned to spend 200 billion zloty over the next 10 years or so on complex multifunctional aerial defense system and anti-ballistic systems like programs Wisla, Narew, and Pilica. So what should be, in your mind, our main priority, drones or missiles? Which system is more valid?
Those systems are, of course, they're primarily used for missile defense, and missile defense systems are layered. So Wisla is up here. It's got one of the missiles in the Patriot system, which is the Wisla program, can actually take out threats above the atmosphere. So if you have a nuclear warhead or a chemical warhead, it takes it out at what we call a keep out altitude, so that all those nasty effects don't filter into the atmosphere. Then you have a level below that and a level below that. And Poland's done a fairly good job of planning to have this layered system. They've worked on it a long time, more than 15, 16 years. So that will always have to be there. But what is needed now are these very, very cheap, like drone interceptors, which the Ukrainians have come up with. Also, at the same forum I spoke to you about, the Swedish company Saab now has a cheap 1 meter long anti-drone missile. So this is the direction of travel now. These inexpensive systems, they're one use only, but it's to take out what's becoming an incredibly crowded airspace full of drones.
Well, the Polish government just announces that it's going to implement this anti-drone system. However, definitely the latest incursion of the Russian drones was a wake-up call for Poles. I remember in July the system was still in revision and it was still being calculated. So are you surprised it takes us so long?
I worked a lot of years here in Poland, with different defense companies, and I used to say the typical approach of Polish procurement is you talk about things endlessly for 10 years, and then one day you wake up and you say, oh, we need a program in 2 weeks. Well, I'm sorry, it takes longer than that. But they're not alone. I mean, this is, it's a nature of procurement systems that when you're not at war and you don't need something straight away, that they become bloated and excessively long. I mean, right now, today, if I want to buy an American fighter airplane, put my money on the table here, say, here it is. Okay, thank you, sir. You'll have your airplane in 7 years. Okay, who has 7 years when you're in a war? Nobody. So that's what we're faced with, and the dynamics have to change.
Well, the dynamics certainly change, and the production of drones and the evolution of the technique is also very, very fast. Obviously, the Ukrainians are the experts. They have the experience of the latest 3 years, so they have the know-how. Now we learned that Europe wants to invest. Ursula von der Leyen just announced that they have 6 billion euro to spend just for the drone system and the drone technology. So is it much? Is it not enough? And how can Poland also contribute here? And how can we benefit from it?
It's like everything else. It's how the money is spent. And what would be nice to see would be to see countries sort of pooling their activities the way they do with these multinational fighter aircraft programs. That you say, okay, you guys are really good at artificial intelligence. You're going to do that part of the guidance system. You people, you've got the manufacturing capacity and the manpower, and your labor rates are low. You're going to do. If we could share capacities in that way and create some economies of scale, that might have some real tangible benefits before too long.
So 6 billion euros, we are just awaiting the decisions, because that seems like a huge news also for the Ukrainians, which can somehow gain a lot from this contract with the European Union. And how about your assessment of the latest incursion of the drones? 3 out of 19 were neutralized. How come? What's wrong? Because many people are asking whether it's our radars who are not sufficiently effective, or perhaps are there any other reasons? Were we surprised?
Well, again, I think probably almost any country in NATO would probably have a similarly disappointing performance. I mean, Poland has never had to think about much of this. I mean, they've had a couple of close calls, a couple of scares, and I'm one of these people that's been screaming for years now, saying, okay, what are you going to do? Are you going to prepare for this, or are you going to wait until some missile crashes into a Catholic church in Poland and kills 75 people, and then figure out how to react? So, but if you're not training for this, if you're not rehearsing for it, if you don't have systems set up, then you won't be ready. And I believe it was Zelensky himself said that Poland's the ratio of the ratio of the drones they were able to intercept was fairly poor. But it all comes down to and trying to learn from the Ukrainians. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if enough is being done in the way of liaising with them and observing what they're doing and trying to learn from their experience. I mean, there's some, but I don't think it's nearly enough.
Exactly. Well, now the announcement has come that Polish soldiers will be trained along the Ukrainian ones and also the engineers in drone defense. However, I remember that the Lithuanian children are being taught how to operate drones. Now, the Minister of Defense, Kosiniak-Kamysz, says that every soldier has to know how to operate a drone, but it seems to be quite late for that.
It's a whole different world from the day where all you had was a pack and a rifle and a canteen.
Definitely.
Now there's so much stuff in what we call the table of operations and equipment. You know, everything you have to have now is way beyond anything we could have imagined even 5 years ago.
And so lastly, as our time is just coming to end, you cannot stop the drones at the border. So why do you think we still keep our eastern border closed with Belarus?
Well, part of it is because if there's a place where the Belarusians or where the Russians might use the Belarusian border to create some kind of a provocation, that's where it would be. And the Russian goal in this whole thing is they want to create some kind of incident in Poland so that Poland then says, I'm sorry, that's it, we're done. That's an Article 5 violation. And then some of the Western NATO members further to the west say, well, I don't know, maybe not. And then that splits the alliance. You have some people saying that was an act of war and some people are saying not. And as I've said on a previous broadcast, the Russians are watching everything that happens. Every single incursion, every single event, they are watching who calls who first, what's the line of communication, what units move, what facilities are located here, who's got command authority. They're watching everything because they want to know how they can gum up the works if they decide they need to.
So they're playing on this ambiguity.
Yes, but they're playing what we call reflexive control. How do you get your adversary to make wrong decisions that he doesn't realize he's making?
Reuben F. Johnson, thank you so much for contributing to our show, for being with us today, and for your insights. Once again, thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching World Talks. This is TVP World. My name is Anna Kalczyńska. Please stay tuned for news to come and other interesting commentaries.